From Cama Beach State Park.
And the Cama Beach Quilters.
Welcome to Winterfest!
Welcome to the second day of the 12 days of Winterfest. Hi, my name's Susan Palmer. Today we'll be viewing 2 quilts and speaking with 3 quilters. The first quilt is Hopscotch by Nancy Sneed. The second quilt is Americana, a collaboration between Melinda Brown and Lilia Tushinsky. Let's get started. Okay, please welcome Nancy Sneed. So tell me, how did you find your quilt life?
I was always a sewer and I always did handwork. And I started in Lawrence, Kansas, doing a lot of needlepoint, and I ended up doing a lot of quilt patterns in my needlepoint. And so that sort of led me to quilting. But the first quilt I did was in Idaho when I saw a friend's Lone Star quilt. So I made a Lone Star quilt for my daughter, and that was the first quilt I made.
Couldn't have made a harder quilt for your first one, huh?
Yeah. The color was gorgeous. The rest of it wasn't so good, but.
All right, well, let's bring up your beautiful quilts. Nancy, this is your quilt Hopscotch.
Yes.
Please tell me all about it.
Well, I think, if I recall, there were lots of your fabrics samples that came in to Cama Beach, and I just liked some of the textures and the feel of the batik fabrics, and so I just took a lot of them, and I'd seen this on Pinterest. It was a 4-patch that you did a different way and cut a different way, and I just had never done that technique or whatever, and I thought, well, these fabrics may be really good to try that technique. And again, I made this at one of the retreats at Cama Beach, I think, the one maybe in the fall that we did. I like the colors, and you know, with the batiks, it's just plain. You know, there's only a couple of real patterns in it, but I like the play of color and the way the yellow and the pink sort of pop out at you.
So did you sew this all together and then cut it apart, or did you do?
No, I did it in blocks.
Okay.
So it was like the brown and yellow. It was 2 browns and the yellow, and you put them together, and then you slice and dice type pattern.
Uh-huh. It's very pretty. It's one of those ones that I think I would be nervous doing, because you sew it together and then you cut them just to flip them.
And I'd never done that.
And the nice thing about this, that you use such big blocks, it was fun to quilt because it gave me an opportunity to actually do some extra special quilting.
Yeah, and you can really see the quilting in the back. I love the way we can just give you quilts. Seeing your quilts come back to Cama Beach and see what you've done and get inspiration from that for my long arm quilting as well.
Well, that's the fun part about getting these quilts, is trying to figure out what would be the perfect pattern to put on them.
Yeah. And it's always a bit tricky to do a quilt like this without a real border on it, because you know how hard it is to get those to be square and and that kind of thing as well. So, and hang fairly well as well. So,
Indeed it does. It's beautiful.
I've forgotten about this one.
I'm glad to pulled it out again, and it definitely deserves to be in a home too. It'd be a perfect quilt for a queen size bed. Thank you again so much for taking your time.
Thank you.
Quilt number 401, Hopscotch by Nancy Sneed. Today I'd like to introduce to you Lilia Tushinsky and Melinda Brown. When and where did you find your quilt life?
I retired in 2012. Within the year before I moved from California, I went to international quilt show that was an annual quilt show, Santa Clara. I've never gone to a quilt show, and I've been a sewer most of my life. I've sewn clothes and drapery. And I had decided that I wanted to get into quilting to learn more about it. So I went to this international quilt show, and lo and behold, I discovered I had a classmate from graduate school in New York, Yamin, She owns a business, Quilt With Me. That really inspired me to pursue quilting. I had a chance to see this amazing quilt that won the $25,000 prize. It was done in red, white, and blue, and amazing piece of work. Then I retired and moved. Washington had a crab cracker when we were looking for the house. I looked through the crab cracker and there was the Cama Beach Quilters. There was Camano Island Quilters, and it was on the island. I said, how perfect can it be? That's how I got started. And I took classes with the group. I attended meetings, talked me into building a stash. And that's how it started. But I think taking classes and finding a pattern that I like, learn my skills. And Cama Beach Quilters, the Winding Road, was my first real quilt that I helped with and made myself. And I think I learned a lot from that experience.
Now, Melinda.
Well, it was a stormy day in '93. We'd had a big snowstorm. I sewed my own clothes and I needed a zipper and I couldn't drive anywhere because of the snow. I thought, well, I can walk to In the Beginning. It was only 4 blocks away. It was a great quilt store. I arrived and there was one clerk and she hadn't seen anybody all day. She invited me in to have a cup of coffee. So we talked and she said, well, have you ever made a quilt? And I said, no, I actually hadn't even thought of it. The two of us went around, we found a pattern and some fabric. She sent me home with my little treasures and I started to make a quilt. I made a quilt, a wall hanging, and then I made another one. And then I made another one and I didn't know what to do with them because I didn't want to quilt them. I went to a fabric store to buy some fabric to add to my stash. And Krista Moser was working there. She mentioned that she quilted. So I gave her my 3 quilts and she did it. That's it.
How did you find the Cama Beach Quilters?
Well, I was at a CIQ meeting. Audrey McEwen was asking people if anybody was interested. She had this great idea that we should make quilts for Cama Beach. I thought that would be a good idea. She set it up for a Tuesday down at the park and I showed up with a few other people. We started to make quilts for Cama Beach.
Okay, so this is Americana. Tell me about how you collaborated and how this came to be.
Lilia, you started it.
Do you want the truth?
Yep.
Well, we were on a quilt retreat. I think it was up in Monroe, right, Belinda?
Yes. Yes.
And, you know, and going on a retreat, you bring a number of different projects. And I found that the projects I had decided to bring were not suited for that setup because I needed more wall space. I needed to visualize my putting this quilt together that was in lots of parts, something. So I went to the Benjamin Franklin store that's in that, picked a layer cake, and I brought it back and I looked at Linda. I said, okay, what can I do with this? So Linda was working on, I don't know whether she was working on something similar or had done something similar. And she gave me the idea about inserting the strips, which I started to do. Honestly, after a while, I got a little tired of it and I decided to take a break from it. Next thing I know, the retreat's over and I offered it to Melinda to finish. Melinda took it home with her and worked on it and turned it into a magic display of really well assorted blocks. What can I say? We're a good team.
Yes, we are. After Lilia gave it to me, I kind of worked at it for a bit. And then I was at a Cama Beach retreat. I was going to finish it up and I ran out of things to do. So that's why I added more strips. Originally, the pattern was just like 1 strip or maybe 2. And then the back, I had inherited that from somebody who thought I could use it for an American Hero quilt. And it sat for years. And anyway, I brought it out and I thought it would look good with this quilt. And so there it is. But I thought it looked good for a back.
Beautiful. Now, Melinda, I think I hear you're top maker of masks on Camano Island. So thank you so much.
Oh, I haven't heard that one. It's kind of addictive.
Gosh, well, thank you both for doing this. It's very wonderful.
All right, good.
All
Good
right.
to see you.
Good. Bye.
Quilt number 544, Americana, by Lilia Tushinsky and Melinda Brown. How fun was that? I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back tomorrow with a few more quilts. Now on Saturday, December 12th at 10 p.m. Pacific time, we're going to show all these videos again. And at that time, you'll be able to purchase one of the beautiful quilts you've been seeing in these videos. Once the show has started on the Cama Beach Quilters Facebook page, please make a comment, the number quilt, and the word sold. When the show is over, you'll be receiving a private message letting you know that you have purchased the quilt and asking for your phone number. On December 14th, you'll receive a phone call from Cama Beach State Park setting up payment arrangements. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.